Well, they did it. I think that a large portion of the Mariners fan base had given up on the idea that the Mariners may trade for Eugenio Suarez, and they did it. Not only did they do it, but they did it for a package that I think every Mariners fan should be happy with. I'm sure there are some holdovers. A couple days ago, I saw a guy say that Ben Williamson's better than Julio Rodriguez, and his argument was that not only is Ben Williamson better than Julio Rodriguez, but year four Ben Williamson is somehow relevant to year four Julio, even though Ben Williamson is older than Julio. Point is, there's always going to be people who are like Sean Locklear Sean. So I'm actually glad he's gone because I can stop calling him Sean Locklear. There are going to be people who are Tyler Locklear apologists or truthers, and they're going to for years they're going to assume that Locklear is better than Gino, would have been better than Gino this year, whatever. It's a great trade for the Mariners. The Mariners traded it was Juan Burgos, Hunter Cranton, Tyler Locklear for Gino Suarez, and these are three guys. I have mixed feelings on Tyler Locklear because I actually think he's going to go to Arizona and he's going to actually have like a productive time in Arizona. Good hitters ballpark. I think his profile fits pretty well there. What it takes to be a Major League Baseball first baseman, starting Major League Baseball first baseman, you have to be like at worst one of the top 60 hitters in baseball. That's what you should be. If not, you're starting to get to the bottom half of first baseman. I don't think Tyler Locklear is ever going to get there, but I do think in the way that the Mariners can take kind of mid-range prospects and turn them into productive pitchers, the Diamondbacks can do the same with hitters. So, what do the Mariners get in Gino? My instinct typically is when a guy leaves a hitter's ballpark, temper expectations. He's probably not going to do as well in Seattle. His counting stats aren't going to be as good in Seattle, but we've already seen Gino be productive in Seattle. It's the perfect rental trade. If you're looking for a rental trade for the Mariners, it was the perfect trade. Now, Stephen Kwan, there's some conversations about him. He's got a couple years of team control left. My buddy Harrison Crow brought up the idea of trading for Jose Ramirez from the Indians or from the Guardians. Ooh, baby. I did a show in Capitol Hill, Seattle last night, and it's called My Straight Friends, and it's a show where straight comedians go through you do a set and then they play like some kind of a like variety show game with you. These two comedians, Richie Armani and Joe Dombrowski, two gay comedians, and boy, I was like, all I wanted was to come out and get some laughs, don't get canceled. That's all I wanted. And then I wake up this morning tired, and I start dead naming the Cleveland Guardians. So, if the Mariners had a chance to trade for Jose Ramirez, I think I would have been more interested in that. But if you're just trading for a rental, Gino's perfect. So the three guys that they got or that they traded for Gino, Tyler Locklear on the Fangraphs prospect list, which is the one that I use. These guys rank a little differently on other ones, but what I will say is I think of all these guys, of all these lists, I think they have Tyler Locklear the most properly rated, which they had him 21st in the organization. Kind of a quad A first base only guy. That doesn't have a ton of value to me. Can he become a productive hitter? Potentially. And by the way, he's been mashing in AAA. There's no doubt about that. So Tyler Locklear, 21st according to Fangraphs. Hunter Cranton, 23rd. And then Juan Burgos was not in their top 29. He was unranked by Fangraphs. These guys, I would say the Mariners, like, if you were going to say which of these guys is gonna reach arbitration in the majors. So not just make it to the majors, but also not have to play so well that you reach 6 years of service time and hit free agency. Just reach arbitration. If you set the over-under at 1.5, I'd say under. I think Locklear has boom-bust potential. I think he could go be, frankly, I think he could go be a Josh Naylor type He could go be a guy that like, and not Josh Naylor type in terms of his profile, but I mean like a guy who's like a fringe first baseman who really can flourish in Arizona. And again, like I said last week, the Naylor trade was good. I was excited about it. It's not as good as everyone made it. I did think it was amazing, and I might have said this on the last podcast. I did think it was amazing that he came in and just immediately started striking out. I thought that was pretty funny. The Geno trade is when you trade for Josh Naylor, it's like who's he going to take at bats away from? Is it Luke Raley? Is it Donovan Solano? If that's the case, great. Solano, by the way, hasn't played since the 24th. I know he had a little bit of a hot streak. And I've also seen, by the way, people are calling for Dylan Moore's head. You got to get... Donovan Solano is so far behind Dylan Moore, especially as the roster is constructed right now, where you added another first base DH type in Josh Naylor. Donovan Solano has no place on this roster anymore, in my opinion. He's not your first baseman. He's not your DH. He shouldn't be. He certainly isn't your third baseman if Geno's there. And... Geno's going to take... So Geno's taking at-bats away from Ben Williamson, one of the worst hitters on the team. Josh Naylor, is he taking at-bats away from Luke Raley? Raley went on the IL, so the Mariners get a reprieve on making that decision now. It's... By the way, it's what made Tyler Locklear getting called up kind of curious. To call him up and then trade him is a bit curious, but the fact that Raley was going on the IL means it's kind of like you're like covering your bases, I guess. So Solano, in my mind, you get rid of Solano long before you get rid of Dylan Moore. And I think the Mariners are nearly set. In a perfect world, you'd probably acquire one more outfielder, but they may know more than we know. I mean, they certainly know more than we know. They may be willing to rely on Victor Robles coming back. And if that's the case, I understand. They also, by the way, they may be willing to give Luke Raley, when he comes back, a little more time in the outfield. I actually think they've done a great job with the offense. They have a good offense. They didn't rest on their laurels. They traded for 2 upgrades. Now they traded for what's his name, Caleb Ferguson, who's a not very exciting left-handed reliever. I will say Juan Burgos had a chance to be a contributor in a playoff run. He had a chance to be a contributor in a playoff push. So it certainly isn't like the Mariners gave up nothing. But I think Juan Burgos, by the way, was like a relief pitcher, high velocity, good breaking stuff. Maybe not on the Fangraphs list, by the way. They might not consider him a prospect anymore. But he's like a fringe roster guy. So how the roster is constructed going forward, I would say the next guy to go is... Nobody has to go because Locklear was on the 25-man or whatever, the active roster, and Geno will slot right into his spot. That's no problem. I think where you want the next move you'd like to see the Mariners make, and maybe they won't, but yesterday, Joan Duran gets traded to the Phillies. It feels like a lost opportunity for the Mariners, I got to say. I was looking at the players, and I can't remember the name of the players now, but I looked at their Fangraphs future value score and compared it to Mariners prospects. So imagine, and I want to put this caveat in. Not every team's going to value these guys the same. The Phillies may not have the same grades on the Mariners prospects as Fangraphs does. They might not have the same grade on the Guardians on the Twins prospects as the Mariners did. But the Twins trade Duran to Philadelphia, and the equivalent trade for the Mariners, one of these guys did end up going in the Caleb Ferguson trade, would have been like Ty Pete and Jeter Martinez. Now, the 2 guys that got traded to the Phillies were both hitters, not pitchers. Again, their evaluation may be different. Now, imagine if you're sitting here today and you've traded away Cranton, Burgos, Locklear, Jeter Martinez, Ty Pete, And for those guys, you got Gino Suarez and Joan Duran. You're stoked. Now, if you were to go out and make whatever the trade is to get a Caleb Ferguson type, you're like icing on the cake. Great. It does feel like they're one piece away. I really thought the stars might align earlier this, and I talked about him quite a bit. Brian Baker, the left-handed high leverage reliever that was in Baltimore and is now is he in Kansas City? Is that where he's in? No, Tampa Bay. He's in Tampa Bay? I thought he made some sense. I still think Charlie Morton would make some sense as a guy who can be a quality reliever and also give you some depth in the starting rotation. I think a guy that just makes sense on the pitching staff, probably wouldn't cost too much. He's very old, but has a little bit of salary that the Orioles may want to give up. And by the way, if you go look at his stats, realize that he had a terrible April, and since April he's been significantly better. Brian Baker is in Tampa Bay. I want to look at the playoff odds real quick. There was a point where it seemed like it was possible that the Diamondbacks may not even be. The Rays are at 12 point. Could you make a Brian Baker trade with the Rays? Because they're at 12.8% to make the playoffs. Could you do it? Because the Diamondbacks are down to 1.9%. So they became sellers at just the right time. The point is, you'd like to see the Mariners acquire a late inning reliever arm, and hold on a second. Mason Miller is available, according to 56 minutes ago. 56 minutes ago as I record this, the Padres added Mason Miller. You'd like to see the Mariners go out and make a deal for a high-level reliever. They might be running out of chances. It's if they go and get Duran, I think you're thrilled. Duran, I believe, has a couple more years of team control. I think Mason Miller has a couple more years of team control. We'll see what the Padres gave up. The Mariners have put themselves in a position where they didn't mortgage the entire future. There's nobody in the trades that they've made so far that I'm scared is going to come back and look like an absolute stud in the way that like Ketel Marte did. But if they're going to do that, going out and getting a guy who's an absolute shutdown late inning reliever that's got team control left, that's a noble cause. So I think consensus around the league is the Mariners won in the Eugenio Suarez trade. I think it's possible the Diamondbacks overplayed their hand, that the asking price was so high that the Yankees moved on, and the I can't remember what other team was super in on Gino. A lot of teams were in on Gino, and they just thought he was going to be too expensive. Or maybe that leak was just the report and leak was this is what the Diamondbacks are looking for, and there's a bunch of teams interested, was a leak from the Diamondbacks to hopefully raise the price they were able to get from the Mariners. The Mariners stood pat. I as much as I think that Jerry Dipoto deserves a lot of criticism, this trade, the Josh Naylor trade, the Caleb Ferguson trade is of little consequence on either side probably. And the Randy Arozarena trade a couple years ago, they've worked out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with that part of what he's doing in Seattle right now. I don't know what that looks like. I've said he's got like too much bad tape. We got too much of a bad taste in our mouth. This is an A-grade trade. I could not ask for a better trade on this one. A couple weeks ago, I talked about not trading bats, except for Tyler Locklear or Harry Ford. The Mariners still have Harry Ford. By the way, would you have been okay with, please answer in the comments, Harry Ford straight up for Yohan Duran? I probably would have been, frankly. Would you be okay? Would you have been okay with him straight up for, so it's J.P. Sears, JP Sears, by the way, shares a name with a conservative comedian who I opened for a couple years ago, and it's always funny for me to imagine the people who are trying to find either guy, like searching for either guy, and ending up with the wrong guy. Mason Miller, what was the trade that got him there? Let's see real quick. So, top prospect, Leo DeVries. I don't know anything about Leo DeVries. Let's see if I can. Number 18 on Baseball America's Top 100, 18 on Major League Baseball's, 23 on Baseball Prospectus. And let's see what our friends at Fangraphs, where they had him before we get off the podcast. Please comment, though, if you would have been okay with Harry Ford straight up. I don't think that gets the deal done, to be clear. But would you have been okay with Harry Ford straight up for Duran? Would you have been okay with Harry Ford straight up for Mason Miller? Let's see if we can find. Where is he at? Where are you at? 21 on the Fangraphs prospect list. So a significant prospect going from the Padres to the A's. Is that the whole deal? Real quick, I'll take a check. This is a bad move, by the way. It's a bad. Okay, DeVries and right. Okay, I'm not going to go through all these prospects. They don't seem to be as high ranked on the list. Right-handers: Braden Nett, Henry Baez, and Eduardo Nunez. Would you have been okay with Harry Ford plus some lower end prospects for Mason Miller and JP Sears? Would you have been okay with Harry Ford plus some prospects, or straight up for Yohan Duran? It's Duran. It's Duran, if we're being honest. If I'm being my best Dave Sims, it's Duran. So I hope the Mariners aren't done. I'm recording this at like 9 o'clock in the morning. Is it even that? Yeah, 9 o'clock in the morning. So it's possible by the time this even comes out, the Mariners have made another trade. I hope they're not done. But if they are done, this is maybe the most impactful deadline they've had in my recent memory.